Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So today I have me and Berks on a podcast. So I decided to do an episode with him. I thought he'd be a great guest. Me and him really see eye to eye on a lot of the mechanics, a lot of our frustrations, etc. And I think this one was pretty good. I was having a lot of fun in the conversation with them. We covered some stuff on a pretty deep level, considering Berks plays Star Citizen more than 90% of content creators, so it's really easy to relate to him, and he's got some great takes. I think the video does well, but I want to apologize in advance because there is kind of a fishbowl effect to his microphone. That's because I was silly and can't get my microphone sorted out, so you can kind of hear it on mine. And so yeah, it sucks that it happened, but I think it's worth uploading anyway. So I will let it play. Just understand, me and him are friends. I didn't really want to structure this too much. I just wanted it to be organic with some questions I had. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the comments section. I'm really looking forward to what you guys think. Okay, so first off, your Berks, your stream is twitch.tv Berks, and you and me have been friends for, gosh, how long? How long would it be now, do you think?
6 years, or almost 6 years, man. It was 2018 when you stream sniped me for the first time. Yeah, that's how me and Virpil met.
We have to
from
start
enemies
again.
to lovers.
No, I'm kidding. Okay. It was right when Virg was breaking the EULA.
It was a different time. You know what I mean? Like I feel like everyone had like a different stance on streaming, on content creation. Combat was not even popular in the game at the time. Like there were no combat you can attest to this, right? There were no combat streamers really, besides Darklaw, Noodle a little bit. But like their channels were, I could be wrong about this. I know Darklaw has seen up and downs, like love the dude. But was the most successful PvP content creator back then. And everyone else above him was mining, trading, which is fine. But the urge for PvP that people have in the content to watch wasn't the same as it is today. Not even close.
Yeah. It was, like this, back then it was after, were you before or after Rexzilla? Do you remember?
So I started as he was exiting. And I didn't know he was exiting, but essentially he was the only person really doing organized PvP. Again, Darklaw is doing organic PvP. Rexzilla is doing unorganic PvP every single day. And I was like, I want a piece of this because it seems like really fun. So I started doing like organized events, and I started doing the trading at Jumptown. Obviously that didn't go well. And it wasn't until you, SDC, and a couple other people who were just like proficient PvP pilots started attacking me on stream that I decided PvP is something I really want to do and invest my time in. So before that, I was a little Care Bear streamer. I flew my Caterpillar around. I yelled at Shadow Moses. I thought I called you guys terrorists. Because you guys were trying to do taxes on people trading. And now that's like common practice. Do you remember you handed out flyers at CitizenCon that said pay your taxes, and it was like an Uncle Sam with the Shadow Moses logo on it?
Do you know what's so funny is a lot of people don't recognize or realize 1 sec, sorry, I just had a text message. A lot of people don't realize or recognize that we had a lot of, like, there was a void of people playing the bad guys back then. Like, and that was kind of like what we saw it as. We were like, oh, we wanted to do this. Like, we wanted to, you know, be able to PvP as frequently as we can. No one had bounties and stuff like that. So
no bounties, no jail.
Yeah, we definitely kind of felt into the bad guy era when it came to that. So yeah, it's funny how we met that way. And you're right, like in the early days, because we were trying, like, our big emphasis as an org back then, and gosh, we would have been maybe like 15 players deep at that time, but it was our emphasis, and the player servers were 50 too back in the day. But,
yeah, 50. And if you remember correctly, at one point 40.
Oh, crazy.
It got dropped down because of Xeno threat.
Oh
So
yeah, because they
crazy, we're
had to
coming full
dial it
circle.
back. Yeah,
They
true,
removed
true.
Levski and dialed it down to 40 people.
And this was
So
like when Hurston, it was like Hurston, Yeller, Daymar, and like Port Olisar, and that was like it. Oh, and we had that other system again too, right? What was that other system?
you talking about Levski?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They had to remove that because of, well, the theory is they had to remove it for resources. They never officially stated, I don't think, but the theory is they had to do that because it was Xenothreat was too taxing on the servers. And I mean, if anyone's played Xenothreat in the last 2 years, it still kind of is. I'm really interested to see how the new Xenothreat's going to go. Very interested if they've restructured it all. Did you play it at all, the PTU?
No, I haven't played the new one. No,
haven't either.
Yeah.
When they posted about it on Twitter, I thought it was the F7 Mark II event that everyone's been talking about.
Yeah.
But that's apparently not it.
Which is crazy to think that we might get that Hornet now too. I don't know if you've seen that, but holy schmoly.
I think it seems very probable. In my opinion, Invictus is probably going to be the biggest sale of this year. That's what I think. Yeah. Unless CitizenCon has the Squadron launch, I think that Invictus will be the biggest sale this year. I think they're going to drop some bombs, including releasing the Idris to its players, I think.
Dude, exactly. Yep. And you know what it is? Like, if they do this, like, they're building up, you know, a wallet for the marketing campaign for Squadron, right? Like, this is probably them going all out on money earned so that they can promote the hell out of Squadron 42 and Star Citizen at like movie theaters, all that jazz, you know, and then they hope that will propel them, I would imagine. But I think I think you're on the right path. Like, I don't think this Idris event that everyone's been doing is just about testing and data gathering and like having
it's not.
I think they're genuinely going to release it too. Yep.
Yeah, I think they're genuinely, they said they were going to release it before Squadron. That's already been confirmed, right? And so it would make sense, in my opinion. Invictus is going to be a big blowout event. They're going to release the Idris. There's going to be maybe some event with it. We'll see. But what I think is going to happen, and that's 2 months away, if you guys are 2 months, 10 days away, somewhere around there. And so if CIG is playing their cards right and Squadron is close enough, I think we get a Squadron announcement at Invictus. If it's not announced at Invictus, I doubt we see Squadron until minimum Q1 next year. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's like they got to have at least 6 to 8 months to advertise it, right? They'd be foolish not to.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to Squadron?
Absolutely.
And you weren't. Yeah. I remember you and me, okay, like for the people who are watching this and don't know, me and Berks have been like really close friends for, you know, half a decade now, right? And you and me would always talk, you know, the game, the design, all that jazz, right? And I remember all the time we'd be like, man, it sucks that Squadron 42 is in the way of everything. Like, I wish they would just forget Squadron 42 and stuff like this. And I was on board with you because it was just like, they're selling ships in Star Citizen and it's paying for a separate campaign that, you know, and we're not even going to fly the ships that they're selling us in this campaign game. So it's like you were buying a product for a game that, you know, or you're buying a product in a game, but the money you were paying for was going to another game. And then in comes CitizenCon, they showed the Squadron 42 trailer, and you and me like, oh, man, we were wrong. Like, this looks really good.
Yeah, and so the thing, if you remember, I never thought that Squadron was going to be a bad game.
Yeah.
I always said I thought it was going to be a masterpiece. What I said was, I thought it was going to be a waste of time.
Yeah.
And I disagree with that statement now. I realized that was biased of me in the favor of Star Citizen.
Yeah.
I really, really love Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Do I think that Star Citizen would be a better game today if they focused all of their energy on it? Absolutely, I do.
Me too.
It's just a sign. It's like a fact, right? Like, it's not like up for debate, I don't think. You can say, oh, they're building the same game or whatever. Right, but if they put all those missions and progression into tangible stuff you could do in the PU every day, that would be more progress, which is good. That's what we need in the PU, progress. We need stuff to do, things to encounter. And so I personally think that Squadron will be a masterpiece based on what I've seen and what I know. However, the issue of it standing in the way has not changed. And I think that if you look at any major single player video game, they are theoretically, not theoretically, what's the right word here? They are essentially not dead. What's the right word here? It's heavy decline after week one, right?
Yeah, like
people play them really heavily.
Everything, yeah.
Cyberpunk, and it doesn't matter how good they are. I'm talking about Elden Ring. I'm talking about all the amazing first player games that we have. But the issue comes with the fact that there's just not enough resources. Star Citizen's too big of a game to be doing both. Now, the question is, now on the back end of Squadron, can CIG deliver the progress that we have in Squadron, hopefully? The same progress that we have in there, we need in the PU. Maybe more. So we're just going to have to see. I'm really excited. 323 doesn't seem like that patch to me, but I'm sure you got other questions. I'm not trying to talk too much about one thing.
You're right. Like, and I worry about, like, I did, and I still do worry about, like, what are the consequences of majority of the effort going to Squadron 42 and majority of the money, because that's the reality of it, right? Like, is the money that's earned from Squadron 42 just going to go into Squadron 42 episode 2, you know, like, and then
right,
because the problem is, and the reality is, Squadron 42 is getting paid for by Star Citizen, and a lot of the products that we're buying in Star Citizen to pay for Squadron 42 aren't even going to get used there. So but with that being said too, there's like other issues like tech limitations. Like back 5-6 years ago, we were sporting like 2080 Ti's, right? Like, you know, you're gonna have a difficult time, I think, playing modern Star Citizen on hardware back then. So stuff like that. But
totally. And I think there's still tons of limitations that CIG is going to continue to run into. And I ask myself all the time, why has nobody made a game like Star Citizen? Is it because it's too hard? Is it because it's not really possible with the current limitations and scope of like games that we can make right now? And I think that it's kind of both, but probably more the second one. People look at a game like Star Citizen and they go, okay, 10 years down the road, this new update's going to look great, maybe play better. We're not really sure. There could still be a lot of bugs with the new star map and master modes and all this stuff, right? There's not 100% guarantee the playability is going to be way better in this new patch, right? It doesn't necessarily increase progression or playability. It's, in my opinion, pretty much just going to look better. And so there are a couple of things with like the FPS stuff and new missions and stuff that hopefully are going to be good. But we've gotten new locations for missions before: bunkers, caves, space stations. And the problem is that progress, quote unquote, never really led anywhere in a meaningful way. So we have to, hopefully CIG has to shift their mentality to get out of that spot. So,
and the thing is too, like we're in that phase where a lot of the work that was happening behind closed doors on Squadron 42 is starting to like transition into Star Citizen. But the problem is too, right, is that's also been an issue. And like we'll cover Master Modes a bit later, but Master Modes is a good example, right? Like Master Mode's been cooking in the oven for Squadron 42 for however long, right? But it's not been measured up against PvP players that are trying to break it, you know, how it operates in Star Citizen as an MMO, because like they mentioned on SCL, I don't know if you caught the last SCL on Master Modes, but they talked about like how they don't need interdiction as a mechanic in Squadron 42, so they haven't, you know, necessarily been ready for Star Citizen. But then that mechanic itself is, you know, crucial to the whole ecosystem of the game. So
absolutely.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to comment on the QED thing, not making it for 323 potentially. I think that, again, it's going to be I think we're going to get a lot of really strong complaints against Master Modes in 323 that potentially are undeserved because they don't have that system in the game yet. I think that people are going to run into a lot of the frustrating issues with PvP that they were running into before. I think that people who don't want a PvP are going to be extremely happy about 323.
Let's just cover Master Modes. We can get to this other stuff. It's okay. Like I just wanted just to be relaxed and fun anyways. But let's just go with it. Let me find my master modes question. I guess my first one is like, what's your general feeling of master modes so far? I know you've been really busy in real life and stuff like this, but
yeah,
you know, what's your take?
Yeah, I've played. I will give as accurate of an update. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert at master modes,
Sure.
just because I haven't been playing. To be honest, I've played less video games in the last couple of weeks than I have my entire life.
Yep.
Just because I've been focused on IRL stuff.
Yep.
But that being said, master modes, when I last touched it, has been fun for me to play every single time in terms of the group fighting. I've had a blast, like hopping in a Connie with people, flying after people. I do think that it seems like there is some goofiness with like Connies being able to like almost be able to keep up with Buccaneers and stuff, right?
Yep.
Like it does feel like the ecosystem of Vanguard and below needs adjustments. I'm not against that.
Yep.
But when I get in a 20-minute fight and I turn around after I blow up my enemy and the rest of the fight is right behind me still, that is an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
And anytime you get into a fight, doesn't matter if it's a slow fight, fast fight, if that happens in the PU and you snowball outside of the fight, you turn around, you're 70, 100, 200 kilometers away from the original fight position.
Yeah, man.
Just because you were tussling.
Yep.
Right? That doesn't happen in master modes.
It's like you might be there with 50 friends, but on your screen, you're seeing like a 1v1. And then when it comes to all 48 other people that are fighting, they're just names like up against the backdrop because they're so far out of range, right?
I'll throw some great examples. There was times that I teamed up with Shadow Moses to fight like AVS or different orgs that I won't name. But there was, I mean, it was like mutual fights, right? But it's like I was in these big group fights with like 50, 60 people. And a lot of times it was a 1v1 with me and whoever I happen to be fighting.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just because of the state of this current flight model, the speed of this current flight model. And I want to go ahead and go on record and say, I actually love this current flight model. And Virgil was the one who taught me to love this current flight model. I had given up on it, and you had like figured out a way to like push on people that nobody else was doing. And it encouraged me to love. I mean, I really love the results that you get from that flight style pushing. And so it makes me feel like we can learn from both of these flight models and maybe get something that's the best of both worlds. But I think the overall goals need to be that people in multi-cruise ships are the strongest. And people aren't going to like that when I say that. They're like, well, skills should be the strongest. Well, it's yes, but it should be like skill of 20 people in a javelin versus 20 people, or 15 really skilled players in a javelin could take on 25 or 30 like average players in a javelin. Does that make sense? The efficiency that you get out of a capital ship is going to be a lot higher based on your skill. And that's going to go for light fighters, medium fighters, hammerheads, whatever. And so that's the kind of skill sets that people need, a collaboration, right? If you've been, have you played Helldivers at all?
No, I haven't. I watch a lot of it, but keep going.
Deep Rock Galactic, Sea of Thieves, Helldivers. This is the type of collaboration we need in Star Citizen in fights. People don't start thinking I'm thinking, oh, arcade or whatever. Literally, I'm just thinking everyone on the ship has a role and it's meaningful. Engineering, co-pilot, turrets. Turrets should be strong. It should be fun to get in a ship with your friends and like fight other people. If Shadow Moses shows up in, 10 light fighters, you should have to force them to go get big ships if you hop in a hammerhead. Right? Like, I love this idea of rock, paper, scissors. And people are making all these assumptions, but we haven't got the Ares Ion yet. We haven't got size 9 missiles yet. We haven't got these huge parts of combat. Missiles really in general are kind of in a limbo state. Stealth. There's so many parts and features of the flight model that we haven't got to use yet because A, it's not in the PU, and B, it's not done. And yet people are giving their solidified opinions on it.
And that's, I guess that was like going to be my next question too, is how do you feel about the feedback that's been given to it? Because you and me both know there's been so much negative feedback to it as well. Like, how do you feel that people are handling the change?
I feel like people are handling it the best that I think it's fair, like the way that people are feeling. There's been a flight model. It's been in the game for since 314, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the change. And if everyone remembers, everyone hated the 314 flight model when it came out. They said, this is so shit, CIG. What are you doing? You guys are idiots. This is bad. There's no positioning. And now I feel like the same people who are heavily advocating to keep this flight model, the current one, are also the people who were advocating against it when it first came out.
Yeah.
And so that all to say, I think that people have not cracked the master modes the way that they think they have yet. It wasn't until months into 314 that people learned how to fly in the most efficient ways and fly the best ships. And things were always evolving as like new ships came out and stuff. So I wouldn't like wave the white flag for master modes until we get a little bit more information a little bit farther down the line.
Yep.
I think it overall, as long as they go in the direction that they're saying they're going, and they talked about at CitizenCon, it feels good to me.
Yeah. It's like, you're so right with no one felt great when live first came. Like, I remember everyone were like so upset with the changes. No one enjoyed it at the beginning. They kind of surrendered to its release. And then, you know, you give it, I would argue it almost took 3 months for people to start to appreciate it too.
It took a while.
Yeah.
Do you remember I literally night one of 314, I get off stream and because they didn't do a PTU for the new flight model, did they? I can't remember, but it was like, it was abrupt. Yeah, it was abrupt. It was either the PTU or live, but it was like an abrupt release where they were like, here it is. And I remember getting off of the stream that night and hopping into Discord with you and being like, dude, game over. This thing sucks. And I feel like everyone felt that way. And I feel like if people are saying they didn't feel that way, they're either lying or because I feel like it was overwhelmingly negative at first. Overwhelmingly.
Oh, yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to look at like all the bad gameplay that was tied to the live stuff too. Like, remember when auto gimbal was mandatory because we had no fixed assist? Like, there was, you know,
remember when auto gimbal was like super OP? You had to rock it just because it was really, really good.
Yeah,
and you could tell when people were using it.
But it was also, that too.
You're in DMs with people, bro. Are you using auto gimbal? And they're like, no, I'm not using auto gimbal. And you're like, send me a screen recording of you killing me.
You'd have to like scan their ships and be like, what is this guy doing? And then like, if his weapons were a size smaller than they were supposed to be, then you'd realize that
I remember you would scan the ships. That's right. That's so funny.
But the big point, right, is it felt like the end of the world back then. And you know, you've seen the meme, right, where the guy's like being hung and he's like, oh, is this your first time, is it? You know, do you know what? It's like that. Like, all I can think of is that meme every single time. Now, to like the people that are giving the negative feedback credit, like, like there's some things that are missing. But the point is, and I cover this in all my videos, all my reacts, it's like it ticks all these boxes of like, are these different ship types worthwhile?
Things we've been begging for.
Yeah.
We've been begging for a lot of this stuff. Dude, every single person, every PvPer, everyone that I know at one point was like, please slow speeds down to under 400 meters a second. That was a specific request from almost everyone in the PvP community. And then we get that, and some people are like, oh, this actually isn't good. Well, give CIG some time to adjust it, right? This is a massive, guys, massive. And listen, I'm not always about giving CIG the benefit of the doubt, but a new flight model, especially like, if you guys have played it, I would encourage you, go play it, go hop in, find a time, like maybe right after your work time of whatever, go hop into your region and just go play some master modes. It's actually pretty fun. Go hop. What's like the ship to use right now, Virgil?
Oh, it's the Buck. Like, and it's the Buck in here because it recreates a lot of that aspect in live. But then the problem is, because it can fly so fast. It's got such huge acceleration and it's got really slow turn rate. So you just like,
did they buff it from where it was like a few patches ago?
I don't know. I think people they might have, but I think people kind of just discovered that.
People discovered something about the flight model later on. That's so weird. It's like our understanding of the flight model can change as we play more. That's so strange. Okay.
And people fly it because it's very much like reminiscent of Live, where it's like little risk investment, like you can run away and accelerate before people get you. And it's clearly on the chopping block, right? Like they're gonna nerf it for sure because it just does so well. So
interesting. I mean, it's like, I think there are room for like interceptor type ships like that, but I think that it needs to be, I feel like CIG is really trying to like ride this line of risk versus reward and then like making the average player feel powerful, right? And the thing is like, think about situations you get into other games where it's multiple people in a PvP situation, right? Maybe Elite Dangerous is a good example. When everyone's like playing on the same level, everyone's engineered. Maybe a good example would be Tarkov, right? Where the scariest thing you could do, or think about FPS for Star Citizen, the scariest thing you can do is have a group of people. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. I don't want the game to be ruled only by super orgs, but it seems like CIG is setting up environments, hopefully, by what they've been saying, we don't have the evidence yet, high sec, medium sec, low sec, null sec, that like you can get a mix of everything. If you want to be a big ass org and take over planets and like fight people, you got to go to low sec, right? And so I think that it's like the opportunity for people to succeed as like an individual player and a small group player and whatever lane you want to do. Master modes, I feel like makes that more possible, just because if you want to run, you can run. If you are being attacked by people and you rally people together, you're going to be instantly strong, right? It's not like Live, or honestly, even we could even go back to like people beg for the 3.13 model, right? Back before 3.13.
And you're referring to the like Talons here, right? Is it the Talons?
Yes, you could like 1v20 people. If you were a good pilot, you could 1v20 people easy.
Yeah.
You remember that? And so the farther we get away from that, in my opinion, the better. I think that good pilots should be able to outfly people, absolutely. But I think that what you can do needs to be limited by the capabilities of your fleet, your org, and who you're playing with, what you're doing, what ship you're flying. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Skill is not the only factor, I should say. You also have to make the right decisions, bring the right ship, and do logistics.
And have friends, alliances, like reputation, stuff like that. And the big one too is like now the amount of players enjoying PvP isn't just the light fighter community. And I can also understand like why the light fighter community is annoyed, because their loop has been polished, changed, and updated for 4 or 5 years, and then it got smashed to the ground when it comes to master modes in favor of bringing everything back up. Right, so it's like they knocked it all down and they brought it, and they're bringing it back up. And I think the light fighter community can relax that it's gonna go back up. Like they're gonna build this thing back up with all the detail, all the sophistication.
I think so too.
But it needed to be in balance, right? Like, and that's the issue, is they've had it so good for so long, and I'm in that that group, but
it is a little crazy to me that they feel as if they're being robbed when 90% of Star Citizen's history of PvP has all been light fighter dominated. So it's not like this is like we just got good light fighter combat. I mean, guys, we've had it for a while. And the thing is let multi-crew shine for a little bit. Let's make multi-crew awesome. This is a multi-crew. Hey, look at me. All right. This is not a 1v1 game. It's not. It was never a 1v1 game ever. This is about fleet fights, org battles, spaceships, and doing the things that were supposed to happen in a sci-fi universe. And guess what? 1v1 simulator is not sci-fi universe. Fleet battles, Star Wars, like I guess minus the Force, that is what we want. And to be honest with you, it's like I think CIG needs to be leaning onto some of these things like Helldivers, right? How cool would it be is if we could go siege or maybe a planet, Levski gets attacked by the Vandal, and you have to go do missions there to liberate the Vandal control over the planet. Oh my God. Like these are the kind of things that when CIG says they're a quote unquote PvE game, they need to be pushing into so that we can create these opportunities of combat for both PvE and PvP. It's right?
It's like
that's what I'm talking about.
people need to broaden their perspective to the big picture.
Yes.
Right. Like instead of
Star Citizen's not a sandbox.
Yeah. Because they just see it as like the X-Wing versus TIE Fighter experience. Like a lot of people have a hard time looking at the game outside of the cockpit of the light fighter and stuff. And I get that, like, and to be honest, it's like CIG to blame, right? Because all they've done is given us, an Arrow, a Gladius, and then a Hornet when it got bugged. And then all these other ships like the Saber, all these other, like the wealth of ships, all the Origin series, the Vandal ships, all had broken UI, were really imbalanced and just couldn't compete, right? So it's like, those are the guys that feel robbed, and it's almost, the fault of CIG because they had it for so long and they never did care about balancing the other ships, so those players never even got to play or never even got to fly their favorite ships, right? So
fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. But I don't think that the light fighters are dead. I think that they just got to scale them down so you can make multi-crew powerful, and then slowly scale light fighters back up so they fit into the game.
Yeah.
Don't design the game around light fighters. That I could not. If anyone is going to tell me on the planet that they should design the game around light fighters, they are insane.
Yeah.
This game should not be designed around light fighters. Design it around multi-crew, capital ships, big ships, and then let's scale down from there on what makes sense. And I would love, like I said, Star Wars. There's A-Wings in Star Wars. There's X-Wings in Star Wars. X-Wings are basically medium fighters. A-Wings are basically light. There is room for those things to be there. I think that CIG just needs to find the position for them, which I just think isn't an easy job.
Yep. And I was talking like to one of the developers like really close to it, and he was mentioning it's just a framework. Like right now, these are the beginning stages, and it's going to grow from here, right? It's like all the feedback everyone's giving and stuff of that, it's all valid, but people need to understanding that like this isn't like the finished product. This is step one.
Yep.
And then everything's going to grow out from here. And to be honest, like I'm finally looking forward to them actually visiting stealth and being able to say like, yes, that's on the way, or armor is on the way, all these mechanics. But we were talking about, like the security systems and stuff like that. So let's kind of like move into that.
Sure.
Last year, towards the end of last year at SitCon, they mentioned base building. So what's your take on that? Didn't that shock us? We never thought something like that would come, did we? We were...
So you're talking about how high-tech security, that you won't be able to attack bases?
I think we know, like... Well, we will talk
just
about
base
that
building
shortly,
in general.
but I think base building in general, like, how'd you feel about when that was announced? How do you feel it's going to go?
My thought before they announced base building is that it was going to come.
Yeah.
But I always thought that the rating system was going to be a little convoluted, and it's looking that's what it's going to be, right? And when I say convoluted, I just mean it's not going to be like open everywhere. There's going to be rules and procedures on how to attack bases, unless probably you're in low security or null security.
Yep.
Then it's probably gloves off. I would really, 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 really like to see CIG and the economy team do something very specific in these nullsec systems, like make a resource that is only mineable in them, make a commodity that is very lucrative to trade there. That's what we need to make those systems meaningful to build bases in. Imagine if there was a planet that it was like, this is the most heavily quantified quantanium deposits in the system, in the whole universe, right?
Yep.
In the galaxy or whatever, I guess we quantify the 125 systems that CIG is building as.
Yep.
Assume it's in the same galaxy. But once you have that and you have these, destinations, maybe a abandoned military security post that has remote turrets and you can bring fuel there and like you can store it for your org mates and RMC so you can repair your ships. And you could claim that as an org, right? We need points of interest, things to claim and do in low security systems that are going to draw big groups like Shadow Moses, like, I'm just trying to think of others, Avenger Squadron, RAM, right? These big PvP orgs need to have targets and progression to be drawn to, right? And that's where the quote unquote sandbox comes in, I think.
Yeah. And it's like the big one, right? Is null, like the null security systems. Like I would want the least amount of hand holding, right? Like in Stanton, we have like these Xeno threat events, like these Siege of Oris, and they're like theme park raids, right? Like I think in the null security system, it's like give the players, the community, the tools to play, and the means to, you know, like go to war with each other, build alliances, build organization deals between organizations, stuff like that. But then be like hands off. Like we don't need, you know, some immersion breaking event that happens once every 3 months and is tied to marketing and stuff like that, right? Because
Agreed.
those type of mechanics were really more for the PvE community, right? Like,
Agreed.
so, and the PvP community only went to those events because that's where the players were, but they weren't interested in the narrative, right? So
yeah,
you know, it's much like Helldivers, right? Like in Helldivers, it's like they're losing this planet, so everyone starts dropping on that planet, and it pushes the progress bar, and you know, like and stuff like that, and you know, the community's like losing ground and gaining ground in aspects. It's like you can give that to the PvE community in these less risky planets, and then let the PvP planets, like the PvP nullsec security systems, just go full Eve style, you know?
Here's where I'll disagree with you a little bit.
Sure.
Okay. Is I think that low sec and up should be the lowest that CIG touches. I've even said, I mean, I'll go on record and say this. I totally think stream sniping should totally be fine in null security systems.
Yeah.
I think like literally, I think gloves off. The only thing that shouldn't be gloves off, okay, you weirdos that are listening, is obviously, you know, hateful comments, racism, stuff like that. Okay, let's be fucking adults and keep the shit in the game. Call someone a bad pilot. This is something you've said, right? Is call someone a bad pilot. Say they suck at the game. Say that they're backstrafing, EM missile spam, whatever. But the second you cross the IRL line and, you know, demean them for any way they look or they sound or anything that's outside the game, it's like, let's just be adults here, right? That being said, though, that was a great point that I just made. What was the question?
It was about like CIG being hands off
with
the content, like kind of just
so
giving us the tools to play around in the story to evolve however it wants in null, like and then have the whole like Vandal, Xeno.
No, I got it.
Parks more part of the other security systems.
I got it. So I actually disagree. I think the hardest PvE stuff in the game should be in the nullsec systems, and I think it should be like terrifying, like not like, oh, this is immersion breaking easy. If they could pull it off in a way that's that's terrifying. Like imagine you're chilling on your Quantanium mine and your SBK that, you know, has been claimed by you guys, whatever, you're chilling, and all of a sudden you hear this, you know, tear in space time and a Vandal ship warps in and just starts fucking you guys up if you're not prepared as an org, you know? And I think that maybe they could even design a system that's like, if maybe you guys haven't seen PvP in a while, they just throw one of those at you guys just to keep things like interesting and moving in the universe. I personally would love that. That's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Maybe it's only certain systems, by the way, like maybe some are like quote unquote abandoned and those ones wouldn't be invaded. There's lots of ways they could approach it. But I think that creating an environment where everyone can have fun, whether that's they don't want a PvP, so they go to high sec, they only want a PvP a little, so they go to medium or low, or they want a PvP a lot and they go to null. I think that's great. Because what you're doing is you're giving people options, and whether people like it or not, man, is people want the choice to opt in and out of PvP. I hate to say it, as someone who's very pro PvP, people, whether they want to PvP or not, they want the choice. And I think giving them that choice is going to make our community stronger in the long run. You're going to have more targets as a PvPer, and you're going to have more fun as a PvEer. If that makes sense.
I think my only concern with that is that, like, if you were to put the most difficult PvE in the PvP system, then the issue is the players that are going into the high security system are still expecting their fair share of the war, right? Like they don't.
They shouldn't be.
And that's the thing, right? Like,
why would the UE need them in a high security system?
Yeah, and
there shouldn't be any Xeno threat attacks in a high security system. I'd imagine they just nuke them.
Yeah, and
you know?
the only issue with that, right, is the whole idea that the high security system is for players that are strictly against PvP, like they don't want to even bar of it. So the question is, how
Well,
big is the slice of cake that they're going to get to eat? You know, like, is the high security system going to just be, you know, a couple nine tail missions and that's about as like dirty and gritty as it gets, or do they get the
I
whole
would imagine
experience?
if you want to participate in a dynamic event in the future, you're going to have to go to a medium or a low sec.
Yeah,
That is just my thought personally.
Sure.
That if you want a dynamic event content like they're not doing Jump Town in a high security system.
No,
Listen,
right.
if you're out there thinking they're going to do that, you are insane.
Yeah.
Those people who show up to Jump Town and say friendly, listen, you're crazy. There absolutely needs to be, and that's where, again, the sandbox part of Star Citizen, earlier I said, is not a sandbox. That's true, I think. I think Star Citizen in its nature is a sci-fi sim. Okay, not a space sim, sci-fi sim.
Yeah.
Right? Space sim would be like, the closest thing to a space sim I can think of is like Kerbal, or God, I don't know, Flight of Nova. That's a really good space sim, right? More like DCS. Flight of Nova is realistic landing. It took like 3 hours for me to land at a city from a station. You have to do like all this like realistic like docking procedures and landing. I smashed to the ground, barely lived. And I think that Star Citizen doesn't display any of those aspects of like DCS or even something that's less of a sim like Squad. I think that Star Citizen is a lot more arcadey, and it has been for a long time. Our main bad guy in Squadron 42, space sharks, right? So realism should not be our priority. I think that fun should be our priority.
Yeah.
And so whenever they're building out these systems, I think that they gotta keep that in mind, right? What's realistic and what's fun. So I think pushing people to maybe the people who are less PvP inclined, maybe there's some medium sec events for them. Or if you don't want to take any risk at all, then you're going to have to stay in high sec security. But like, why? Again, I find it hard to think that there's going to be events in the high security systems. I don't know what they would be. Unless they're like testing events, right? Like, oh, the UE is training and we need your help testing this, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's really the only lore thing they could do.
Yeah. And I get it. It's just, I am also sympathetic to the players that still want to capture a decent amount of the Star Citizen experience in regards to PvE without investing into PvP. And to be honest, like, you know, this coming from a hardcore PvP org leader, right? Like, I don't mind, like, the guys that downvote anything PvP to oblivion and Reddit and stuff, to be honest, I'm like so tired of that debate that I'm just fine with, like, give them their playground in high security systems so I just don't have to deal with them, right? Like, no more PvE.
Yes, give them their playground, but where CIG needs to be careful is people are going to disagree with me, I feel like, and I could be wrong, but every time I bring this up, people say I'm wrong, but it's just not the case, because we have literal proof. Every time CIG has introduced a profitable, and in the future, what it's going to be is not profitable, but a progression-based event, right? Something that brings your progression up in Star Citizen. What needs to happen is you need to be rewarded for going to those at a high level and succeeding at them, doing well at them, right? And so if we're pushing people to the low sec systems, to the null sec systems, because there are things that people want, I don't think that's a bad thing. A lot of people say that the reason why that's bad is because you're excluding PvE players. It's content they can't play.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's lots of content that you'll never get to play, right?
Yep. And maybe that's what it should be. Like, in the high security system, you have the casual PvE experience. Then if you want the crazy, hot-headed, like, intense PvE experience, then you have to share the middle ground with the PvPers, right? Which is medium sec. So, like, maybe a lot of the Vandal, the Xeno threat events, the Siege Virus, and all that kind of stuff is heavily in the middle, in these medium sec. And then null sec, which is no security, is just PvP narrative the entire way, you know, like it's about
PvE, PvA, PvP.
Yeah. So like the middle ground is where PvE meets PvP, and it's almost entirely in that system, right? And then, you know, you can have you know, an economy that works around that, and that way people know what they're invested in. And you brought up a really good point, because this was one of my questions, and you've got a unique take on this because you're, you know, arguably one of the biggest SC streamers this whole time. The how do you feel about if the gloves come off at nullsec and there is, you know, should stream sniping come off? And here's the thing about stream sniping, right? Is when you have a sandbox game, okay, and this is like been my thought process the whole time, but I understand, like, I don't think there's anything to gain from like stream sniping some dude mining a shit, you know, mining a rock, you know, like that's just the stuff for the dicks, you know, those guys are idiots, but that are stream sniping them, sorry. But like the idea that once you cross that threshold, you go through the gate into a null security system, it's hands off. Because the problem, and you and me have found this, right? We have an extensive history when it comes to, you know, what is crossing the line when it comes to PvP. We've been heavily involved in those debates with CIG and stuff like that. How do you feel about them just taking the gloves off completely in those systems? Because at the end, I just want to like begin this with saying, you and me know what it's like when CIG wrongfully get involved in refereeing PvP. You know, and as these systems grow and the game grows and the population increases and stuff, it's going to be harder and harder to protect streamers from stream sniping, right? Like, say you're part of a 500 player battle. You know, how do you prevent stream sniping with 500 players? You know, and people capturing that, right? So it'd be really hard too.
I think that if CIG is going to push into the PvP in nullsec main, then it should just be anything goes. There's no TOS inside of the nullsec systems, except, again, guys, out of game hateful content. That's the only thing. And so I think that aside from that, I don't see any problem with any tactics, like at all. But when you die in Star Citizen, they need to change the way it works. It needs to be an elite dangerous loading screen. So you get to choose where you spawn. Do you want to spawn at your home planet, or do you want to spawn where you last at your spawn? Give me some options like Rust or like Elite Dangerous, so that I'm not quote unquote stuck at a station like some people claim that you get whenever you're in a system like that. But the thing is again, if you go through that jump gate to Pyro, the gloves should be off. CIG should not be concerned about anyone quote unquote excessively PvPing. If you don't want to be excessively PvP'd, go back to Stanton, or whenever there's a new high security system, go there instead, because those people who so desperately want action in Pyro and who are rolling around in groups fighting people and looking for resources and wanting that action, those people aren't going to be hanging out in high sec systems unless they're bringing an armada. And guess what? It still should be hard to survive in a high sec system with an armada. Like if you go to, let's say, I'm going to make up a fake scenario, Virgil, and maybe this will make some of the people that you know are wondering what I'm thinking like a little more clear. If you go to a high sec system, Virg, and let's say you get captured, right, by the UAE, you should have, like, I would say, much more severe punishment. Maybe you could even scale it up where it's 3 times the jail time as you would get in a low sec system. And if you want to break out, it's like, I mean, dude, you got to like bring the you know, Battlestar Galactica fleet. You know, it's like you got to really bust your captain out if you're going to make some. It's like, I mean, I'm not trying to spoil anything here, but it's like, you know, Attack at Marine Ford from One Piece, right? Like, do you watch One Piece at all?
No, I watched the real life version only, actually. But
okay, awesome. Okay. I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to, that's why I specifically didn't give any details. But dude, it's like
a huge monumental task to go in there with bad intentions, right?
Like it needs to be like your back's against the wall, unless like the Avengers come together and like Shadow Moses, Ram, AVS, they put down their differences to like fight the UE, because it is rough for pirates in the high security systems. That's the kind of action I want there. Now that being said, there should be, like, in those bunkers, there should be really good loot for high security players like for criminal players like yourself to go in with your org and bust into there. That should be y'all's raids, right? Bad guys should have raids, quote unquote, in high security systems. That's what I think.
It's an interesting take. It's like, I've always been of the, because like the thing for me, man, is I feel like I've aged 20 years having the PvE versus PvP take. So I was very much like, if you get caught in high security systems, maybe like you should just be reputation gated from being able to even approach the gate, right? Like, you know, you request
unless
to go
you
through the
sneak in
gate
through one of those like holes that they've talked about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just make it like layers and layers and layers of difficulty to like even get into a system like that. Because yeah, the big one for me is like, I don't enjoy fighting players that aren't interested in PvP. Like, it's just, I get no dopamine from it. It's too easy.
Boring.
It's like whatever, right? Like,
yeah.
And the problem is too, is because of the nature of the design so far and where we've been at with the game, a lot of the PvP community only PvPs against the PvE community, right? Like, you don't see top orgs, you don't see the PvP groups going head to head with each other often. It's just usually they're going after some group that actually isn't interested in that PvP.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I was hoping.
And what happens when the top orgs go against each other?
Dude, I know. They run and they like it's stalky.
This is a little bit of a point back to master modes, but if you are still questioning if master modes is good or not, you should go on this topic of like org battles and stuff. You should go watch. Do we have like any of these fights recorded that we've done?
No,
I mean, dude, go watch yeah, you don't want to. I mean, a 25 versus 25 fight in the current flight model would literally just be people zipping around for 2 hours and maybe 2 or 3 people die. Yeah. Like out of the 50 people, 2 or 3 people die, everyone's zipping around full speed.
And it's like because there was a collision or something, right? Like it was
a collision or a lucky EM missile, right? Like it's never like you shot someone and killed them with their gun. Well, you know, occasionally, right? Like someone's like out of position or something and they get swarmed. It happens, but I mean, speaking from experience, I have never had anything even close to as fun of a group fight as I've had in master modes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, well, let's keep going with this. So you and me have played a lot of Rust off stream, right? Like you and me get up to some shenanigans playing Rust. How do you feel the base rating mechanics gonna go? Like, are you skeptical of anything? Are you worried about, you know, like bombers and stuff interacting with bases? Because you and me have quite a bit of experience playing like New World, for example, where it was a very system based when it came to the raids, and then, you know, we've also had build brick by brick like Rust. So what do you think?
I gotta be honest with you, I really liked the way that New World did their war system. I think the worst part about it was like the how much laggy it was, right?
Yeah.
So it was same problem as Star Citizen, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that it's going to be really interesting. Server meshing, it still has a lot of very unanswered questions.
Yeah.
I know people are really excited for the 400-person test, but there's a big difference between 400 people and like 10,000 in one system.
Yeah.
And I'm rooting for CIG. I really am, but I just don't think we're quite there yet. And without being fully there, and even if we do get there, there's just still a bunch of unanswered questions. What happens if 1,000 people show up at your base at the same time?
Yeah, you know, you can't even get into the shard. Like, are we going to be in different realities trying to? Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Is it like, okay, so but let's say 100 people or 1,000 people aren't at your base. Let's say like Virgil, you just want to raid my base. Well, I'm on shard A, and you come find me, but you happen to load into shard B. Is it like?
Are you trying, because like is the org like we have to go raid this org's base because they're on, you know, Pyro C, you know, and we're trying to squeeze into the shard? Yeah,
because they've said, Chad McKinney said, and this may have changed because this is about 2 years old information now at this point, guys. But he said at one point you would not be able to change shards in mid-session. So that means that if you get on the wrong shard, that, well, you're just on the wrong shard for that session. And so there's a lot of just fill in the blanks right now. It's like, are you gonna just always automatically go to that shard with that person's base on it? Are you gonna transition halfway through? Is there gonna be instancing? Because, okay, well, great, we just introduced server meshing, guys, so 10,000 people is the limit. What happens when 10,000 people all get in one place? Do the servers explode? Like, does it instance into 10 sessions of 1,000? Like, what happens? We don't know. And this is something that CIG really hasn't answered for us yet, probably because they don't know the solution yet.
Yeah.
They're probably just working on the best one.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it's going to be like, but unless we're all in one shard, it's going to be, like I said, a little convoluted.
Yep.
I can't imagine a non-convoluted way to do it unless they have a very sophisticated matchmaking system that, again, transfers you mid-game session.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I would think is like quantum travel would be like the hide for transferring you between game sessions.
Yeah.
Kind of like Elite Dangerous does.
It's hard to imagine like building homes base building when, you know, what is being told is the future is like the multiverse, right? Like, so like it's very interesting when there's different versions of a reality and then you've got fighting for territory amongst that.
I think what I would like to see is what I said earlier, which is specific points of interest, like a ground base at a moon that has like heavy metals or whatever, and there only exists one version of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how CIG is going to do that, but that would be ideal. There's an SBK in a nullsec system, a super SBK, and a system that your org can take over and fully functional. They can pull ships, they can spawn there. There's medical, whatever. You can maybe upgrade it. Like it's a base, essentially. It's a floating base. And they've talked about doing this, guys. It's a little copium.
It's important to know too, like, and Jal, he, nails this into us all the time. The early promise was Bengals being captured by organizations.
Yeah,
like,
no, absolutely.
They weren't going to be player owned. It's just that, like, if you managed to board one, control it, then that was your fortress that you'd be moving around in. So
can I say something?
Go for it.
Unless something drastically changes with the shipbuilding process, I think we will never get the Bengal in game.
Because the biggest we've got to is the Jav, isn't it? Yeah.
The biggest we've gotten technically now is the Idris.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In game. I'm talking about finished.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's been a massive undertaking to get 2 capital ships in the game out of like what, 12?
Yeah.
And so let's not even talk about the Endeavor, which is basically like 4 capital ships combined.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the Odyssey, and there's the Kraken, right? The Kraken Privateer, which that one won't be as hard to make, right?
Mm-hmm.
Polaris isn't out yet. I think that they're definitely getting faster, but like me thinking about them taking on the Bengal as a project seems way too big. I don't think that I think we're going to be in the Kingship at some point in Squadron 42. But I think it's going to be like sectioned off.
I just thought I thought it was very weird that like their first approach at base building was ground bases. Like I expected like small stations or something like that, like
I think that's the better approach.
Yeah. Rather than, because when you put it on the ground, you add like, you're breaking immersion when it comes to like A2 bombs just wanting to drop bombs on the thing, like, and stuff like that. So, but when you've got, and running out of space, for example, like I played Star Wars Galaxies, right? You didn't play that, but as soon as you left a city, it was just like houses with very little room. Like you were running, like houses were, wall to wall, just hundreds.
That's going to happen,
and is that what Star Citizen's going to be? Is like you're flying across Daymar
around major cities.
It's like like you're running into a base every couple hundred meters or something like that. So
maybe not as quite often as you. I mean, Star Citizen's got the most space of like any video game of all time besides No Man's Sky. So I think someone already did the math and they were like, if everyone built a base, it wouldn't even take up like all of Microtech. And so that being said, there's not really a concern for like space, but I think that people will congregate to those points of interest the same way they do now. But guess what? Instead of if you're not mining at a point of interest, or, well, I guess aside from mining is what I mean, there's no reason really to be in the middle of nowhere besides building a base. So unless you just want to be secluded, like for convenience, you might as well build close to an outpost, as close as you can.
How would you envision the base raiding gameplay? Like you have to go on the ground, like
God, I don't know, man.
Base, take out the shields, and then it becomes vulnerable.
Let me ask you a question: do you want to be able to raid people offline?
Yeah, that's the $1 million. No, I don't. I think
you don't. And so, do you have to set up a schedule with someone?
Like,
do you know what I mean?
Maybe what it is like you have to approach the base on foot. You have to approach the base on foot. You hack it, and then there's like a vulnerability in the shields in a certain time frame, and then you can go attack it, and they have to defend it. Like I love the Eve style of like attacking a station is almost like in a planned window where both groups get to play it and then have to duke it out. I like something like that, and they could maybe make something like that immersive. But that's the only issue, right? Is like, I just, in my mind, I keep thinking of like, well, it's dorky that we can almost drop, you know, small nuclear bombs out of A2s, but, you know, we're going to have bases that are going to be immune. So
I just wonder if it worries you that, like, if they don't do, like, even in nullsec, does it worry you that, like, an org that's attacking you could just literally be planning around y'all's schedule, so you have to be ready 24/7?
Yeah, like, and that's the problem, right? So vulnerability windows are good, right? Where it's like you lay down the base, you choose the time frame in which your base is vulnerable. Another group comes, because that's how it works.
So
in
that's
Eve,
how
right?
it works.
Yeah. So in Eve,
understand.
you drop the base and then you set the timer, which is like, okay, between 7 and 8 p.m., whatever. That's when we're gonna be our vulnerability window, and then another group comes in and has to attack based off your vulnerability window. And then that starts the first stage. And then there's the second stage of attacking it 3 days later, you know, like in the same time frame.
I personally wouldn't mind a system like that. And I think a lot of heavy PvPers are going to hate a system like that. But it works in one of the most successful PvP video games of all time, right? Which is Eve. And so I would love that, because what it does is it brings everyone to the content. It is going to give the most amount of people the opportunity to do that. Now, the question is how does it work in terms of, like, could you then pick a window that doesn't work for the org that's attacking you? But is that fine because you are the one being attacked, so you should have that advantage?
Yeah. And they call that time zone tanking, is where it's like you're hiding the vulnerability timer away from a group that, you know, like isn't. So say for example, say for example, like Shadow Moses is very prevalent in you know, Pyro system. I think there's a Virgil system. Let's call it the Virgil system, okay?
What?
So we are migrating straight to Virgil, guys. It's the orders.
It's Vandal Run, FYI.
Yeah. So like, imagine, you know, we're in that system, and then, you know, there's a Chinese organization that comes in and they're playing a big part of that system too. Well, we could just hide all of our vulnerability windows away from the Chinese time zone, and then, you know, their vulnerability windows in the Chinese time zone, so we can't attack each other. That does happen. It's a reality of Eve, but I think it's just the consequence of making a mechanic that does include people.
Yeah, because like the deal is that as much as I love Rust, that game you have to be glued to it to be successful. And the thing is, guys, is I want better PvP, not cheesier PvP.
Yeah.
And you know what's cheesier than Windows? Raiding people offline.
Yeah.
100%. It's dumb. It's stupid. And then you have to introduce things like heartbeat monitors, and then like you have to like add in mods to even make the game work that way, because like people are like throwing up doors and stuff like mid raid. Like it can't be allowed to do that stuff. You should absolutely be like repair or like building locked. Well, actually maybe not. In a game like Star Citizen, it might make sense that you could repair your base mid raid. Right? Like engineering. But and then you could like set up like big old turrets that you could hop on, right? That are ground turrets. Like, I'm referencing Helldivers, but at these little bases, they have these like big, like chunky, like, it kind of feels like shooting buzzsaws. And I'm like, why don't they put these at some Star Citizen bases so you can look up and actually shoot some people? You know, like these little size 1 Gatlings. Why did we add that in? Add some real anti-air. Right, like let's focus on the fun, like right? Like let's make, flak. Let's like make ground vehicles and ground units and bases powerful, so people have to use strategy and logistics to win. Right?
I don't know.
Like I absolutely think Defender should have the advantage.
If you've played master modes in Atmosphere, the speeds are even far more constricted. Like you go to Nav mode, dude, you're talking 200 a second in Nav. Like it's so slow. So yeah,
is it possible that the atmosphere just isn't done yet?
Yeah, absolutely, and that is the case, absolutely. But like, yeah, I was just very interested. I thought it was very interesting how like it was so polarizing already, and I'd have to imagine some of that speed was on purpose. But yeah, definitely a deal. So anyways, let's move on, because we probably got about like, you know, 20-30 minutes left. The big one was, okay, so you've taken a break from the game because, you know, you're having a hard time being a content creator full time on Star Citizen. What do you feel that Star Citizen needs to grow as to be able to justify or being a full-time content creator? Like, you know, I know you've been making. There we go. Keep going.
That's it, man. We're 10 years into the video game, and we have not a little, guys. We have zero progression. Earning ships, money for ships in game you can buy with real money is not progression. It's not progression. We need real progression. Things that you can buy in game that you cannot buy with real money. Items that you can get, reputation you can earn to land at Grim Hex, for example, or SBK, like that bug that they took out. They took out the only progression in the game. If you got up to level 3 or higher with the UEE and Stanton, or sorry, at Round Crusader, you could land at SBK without having the trespassing warning. It was like, oh my God, they're actually listening to us. And then they took it away because it was unintentional, is what they said. Right? Like, make it where criminals can only land at Grim Hex. Make it where if you're a criminal and you shoot up Evers Harbor, you can't go land it there 10 minutes, right? And so things like this, giving us weapons and in-game craftables, right? They've talked about blueprints and stuff. These are really good steps towards that. But I'm just concerned because it still feels like we're really far away and we're 10 years in, right? Like, don't get me wrong, it feels like it's coming, guys, but it still feels like we're about 2 years out from all this major progression stuff they're talking about.
It's like a progression and an economy, right? Like where...
No, and I think economy is part of it.
It's like the accumulation of power, and you know that's why, like, I always tease people who make fun of Star Atlas as like the NFT game. It's like, what do you think we're playing? You know, it's like you buy an NFT on the store, you know, with USD, and then you fly in it.
Flyable concept art.
Yeah, and the best thing you're doing is like Xenothreat, where it costs you 5K in total in repairs and like ship claim, and you gain nothing. 100K towards nothing. So yeah,
right. Well, when I say progress, right, part of that is the struggle up to whatever the end of that progress is. So that means time sinks. That means getting your own fuel if you don't want to be getting it yourself. That means like things like a good economy would cause you to need to do things like, oh, please, CIG, if you're listening, fuel siphoning, right? Imagine if fuel was valuable enough that whenever you blew someone up or soft at them, you wanted to siphon the fuel out of their ship. You know, like, oh my God. And you have to like pull a backpack out and like jerry can it. Like, that would be awesome.
And then the problem, you know, the people always make this argument, and I despise this argument, which is like, the game's too buggy, it's not ready for that. And it's like, man, we're at 12 years now. Like, it's time for there to be some suffering.
Star Citizen will always be buggy. There is no future. I'm serious. There is no foreseeable future where Star Citizen is not buggy. It's just not going to happen. And it's not because CIG's incompetent. It's not because the devs suck. It's because they are building the most complicated video game of all time. Right? And we're 10 years in, and our big update that everyone's excited about. Don't get me wrong, I'm excited too. Star map, new HUD, FPS stuff. It's mostly just cosmetic changes to the this new patch, right? Even the fly model is essentially a cosmetic change to combat, right? Like, don't get me, we've had combat for the last 10 years. You know what I mean? It's not like combat's a new feature of the game. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad that they're changing it, but what I'm saying is we're 10 years in, and it's like, okay, we're building the foundation of this game still. So when do we get to the meat, right? We've built this beautiful display case for this universe. Now, what's going inside of it? Where's the missions and stuff?
We're tired of just being the QA, right? It's ready for us to start playing the game, you know? Because that's the problem. And I definitely can relate to the feeling of when you're being a content creator who's in the PU, you're kind of just like pretending this stuff is worthwhile doing, but it's not. There's no progress to the account and stuff. I can totally get that, which kind of leads into my next question. So, and I think you'll enjoy this one. You mentioned the economy team is or the economy is part of the progression that's lacking that to justify being able to make content full time. So, hypothetical here, you're given lead of the economy team, okay? Meaning you get to point your finger at where the economy team and their resources are going to start working towards. What aspect of the game would you be pointing economy resource development to? What needs
So
the immediate
first
attention of the economy team?
First of all, I want to say that my apologies. I can't remember the name of the guy, the new economy lead, but the guy who talked on SCL a couple of weeks ago seems like an awesome guy. Seems like he definitely knows what he's doing. Preaches a lot of the same stuff. Did you watch it? Preaches a lot of the same stuff that we are. He said he was an Eve player.
Oh, really? That's great. That's a good sign.
I'm pretty sure. I might be misremembering, but pretty sure he said something about Eve and just economy wise, guys, by the way.
Yeah.
Not like, I know everyone doesn't want Eve 2.0, but it's like the point of the matter is this guy seems like he knows what he's talking about in terms of, I'll have to go rewatch it, but in terms of the economy. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to do. That being said, I think that without knowing what CIG is internally motivated to do economy-wise right now, what I would do on the outside looking in is I would make resources in a loop, right? So first of all, so Crusader is the place that you mine gold. And who wants gold? Microtech, because they make microchips. And it's a valuable resource in there. And what do you mine at Microtech? Quantanium. And who wants Quantanium? Well, kind of everyone, right? But the place where they process the most is Hurston. And that's why it's so smoggy there, right? And then Hurston is the place where you mine Laranite. And who wants Laranite is ArcCorp, because they make stuff with it. And what do you get over at ArcCorp? You get X material. And then you're making things in a loop. And then those things you can either sell or you can craft. And crafting, I think, is what gives those things value, not the fact that you can sell them. Forget selling them, right? The real value is what you can turn that stuff into. Bullets, components. I'm talking about special shields and stuff. And here's where I start to go a little bit off the deep end, right? Is what my dream is that the highest level components. First of all, I think it was a huge mistake that CIG ever put tier A components on anything default. What a huge mistake. It should have always been tier D components on everything. Unless it's bespoke weapon like the Inferno or the Ion. It should be everything is class D, has no weapons, has no shields. It turns on, it flies away. If you want to get the class A component deal, you're going to have to pay the dealership X amount of money, a ridiculous amount of money, for the convenience of not having to go to all these shops and buy it or craft them yourself. But I think that along with the economy, there should be the ability to make the best components in the game, tier S, craft them, find them, steal them, loot them, right? You either loot them from UE bunkers, you craft them with really hard materials to get, and then you can sell them on your Kraken or your Bond and Merchantman, right? And so you make these tier S components, and then you make it where they're uninsurable. If you lose them, you go back to your other components, your tier A components. And maybe every single component, the shield, the weapons, whatever, give you about a 25% boost. It could be less, it could be more. I don't know what the right metrics would be. But the point is, you get a bit of an edge, but the risk of bringing those components out is high. Because if you lose to your opponent, they get that stuff off your
there we go.
Your ship.
And then it starts like trading hands, and then risk becomes a part of it, right? Because we don't want these to earn these great components and then that's it. Like it's like Elite Dangerous, for example. You get the engineered gear or equipment for your ship, and then that's it. The grind's over forever. You're now playing super casual with very little risk, right? So,
let me clarify again. If you die, you should go back to the components you had before. You shouldn't just lose components. But the tier S components you have, gone forever. Unless you go recover them, unless your buddy gets them off of your ship and brings them back to you, they're gone. Those people can take them. And maybe they even degrade over time, so you have to repair them.
Or like the type of insurance in the system, right? Like you pay a pretty penny, a significant amount before you go out on your adventure. If you lose them, they might come back if they weren't looted.
What if, this is insane copium, are you ready? What if you could pay NPCs to go get your gear for you? And literally all the NPC would have to do is fly to the location, sit there for 15 minutes, while it quote unquote gathers your stuff and then fly away. And if that ship gets killed, then
that's it.
Your stuff's gone. That's it. That's like those
Cutlass Blacks that arrive at like bunkers. You know how you see those Cutlass Blacks, they like land on the ground. Yeah, it could be like that.
Yeah, it's like a Vulcan shows up or what is it? Not a Vulcan. The Crucible. A Crucible shows up and just starts picking your ship apart. And if it starts getting attacked, it will just start flying away. And it's like, hey, sorry, it was too dangerous. We can't recover your stuff. Kind of like what happens in Tarkov when you're unable to get your insurance back. Like, it'd be cool if it was like a tangible part of the process. That doesn't sound too hard to make to me, especially if it's not like actually pulling stuff. If it's just like shows up and like beams it a little bit, and then
we don't need like NPCs with laser cutters and stuff, right? Like, or, we don't need
it just needs to be like
the grav tool, but some sort of mechanic. But
that would be a way to make it tangible. I think that'd be cool.
Because that's the problem, right? Is a lot of people like, oh, it's the alpha 12 years in, you know, it's not ready for, you know, we're not ready to lose components when we die. Yeah, exactly. And
I'll tell you what, guys,
progression goes hand in hand with pain, right? Like victory has to come with defeat, you know, and it comes with, you know, eating the vegetables too, which has just been such an unpopular topic with it. So yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think that it's like the sooner people recognize that that's what gives this game value long term is progression and reasons to be in it. Because every time a new patch comes out, people come play the pretty new stuff. They hop in for a week and then they're like, I'll just wait till the next update, because there's nothing to do outside earn money for ships, guys. There's nothing to do. And I know some of you guys are big fans of the game.
Right? Like they just buy it. They just go straight to buying it.
They just buy it, And don't get me wrong, guys. Some of you are really big fans of the game and you love doing bunker missions. You love doing PvE stuff. You love doing mining, whatever. And you don't care about what I'm saying. And that's fine, right? But you have to realize is if we get what I'm talking about, you get what you want and we get what we want, right? It's a win-win situation. It only means a better game for you. That stuff that you're mining, that stuff that you're trading, that stuff, whatever, the bunkers you're grinding are only more meaningful. Imagine you go down into a bunker and you find a rare medical tool instead of a railgun that like can do a self-revive on you, right? I talked about this. Wouldn't it be cool if you could do a self-revive in Star Citizen, but like it starts injecting you with drugs, and if you can't get to a hospital in like 10 minutes, then like it just kills you because like you know what I mean? Or like there's so many rare items and like components and different avenues they could go down to just give the missions and stuff we're doing already more value. And it boggles my mind when they introduce new stuff. And this is what worries me about these new bunkers is they give us these.
The next question. Good.
Oh, okay. Go ahead and ask the question.
Then. No. Go. This is perfect.
It just worries me about these new bunkers is we've gotten bunkers before. We've gotten caves before. We got the new sand caves. We got the new outposts. We got the derelict outposts. We got Ghost Hollow. And what has really come from it long term, guys? Nothing. Nothing tangible has come from it long term. Not some stuff. Nothing has come from it long term. And so it's like every time they run Jumptown, it gets less and less popular. Every time they run Xenothreat, it gets less and less popular. Every time they run Siege of Orison, it gets less and less popular. Why? Because it's just like Elden Ring. People have already played it. They've already experienced it. And so unless it's a really good money-making tool and they need the money, they're not going to play it.
There's no compelling reason to keep the gameplay loop active. It's like Ghost Hollow. Like the first month of Ghost Hollow was really great. We're like, oh, thank God, you know. And then who cares about 50k every 30 minutes anymore? You know, it's like at that point it became redundant so quickly, and it's a shame because it's like a well done mission. It's a nice little FPS map, like it's good, but there's just nothing there now. Now it really is Ghost Hollow. There's no one there. So but like the thing is, and I'll tell you this, I have a unique take on this. I am like, when it comes to the 323 release, I am so high on Copium for the UGFs that I've been avoiding doing SCL React for the UGFs because I'm worried I'm going to be disappointed, right? Like when I think, and you and me can talk about this more because we played Tarkov offline, you and me.
You know, they said they're not done, right? Like they're not going to be done for 323?
Yeah. There's missing deeper levels to them and stuff like that.
Just making sure you know.
But in my mind, I was always like, oh, you know, this is them capturing that Tarkov experience. Because one,
I hope so,
it excludes spaceships because there's like tiers to this bunker. It's not like, because every FPS building and all of Star Citizen they've released is like a tiny little shed or a tiny little bunker with like 2 rooms and 10 NPCs. There's no depth to it. It's like SPK, right?
Dude.
Like, but these bunkers are like these mega structures to the point that you can drive ground vehicles in. And the big one is they absolutely exclude spaceships, which has never been done before, right? So like I'm hoping to God to credit your what you were mentioning. I'm hoping that they are justified in its existence, like rare loot. Like when I think of UGFs, you know what I think of, Berks? Labs, like the Tarkov Labs map, where difficult raiders, you know, far more difficult AI, and then far more like loot, rarity and loot. You know, key cards that access, you know, rooms inside of there. Like you go into the administration office and you're picking up like rare furniture loot and stuff like that. Like, and items that can't be found elsewhere. Items that can't be found elsewhere. This should be subscriber flare gear down there in the truckload, you know?
And so why aren't we adding these key cards to like security bosses at the highest level bunker missions that people can get off their bodies and then take them to these UGFs?
Yeah.
And if they get caught with them, if they get scanned and the security sees, hey, you have one of these key cards on it. Why do you have one of those key cards? It's risky. You can get maybe a CS5 immediately or, you know, a CS4 or something.
And then these key cards start selling on Reddit or like, you know, Discords. People are like, hey, I've got this key card, 50 million UEC,
too, right?
Like
there's
it
like
springs everything
railguns
to
and
life.
stuff.
It's like, look at if you loot the Red Labs key card in Tarkov, right? It's like, that's it. You're set. Like you just won the lotto, you know, and that could be the experience with places like this, you know, and
I don't think it has to be quite as rare.
Yeah,
I don't think it has to be quite as rare. Because I think what the rarity should be the skill in the whole process, right? You get the key and then you're able through like logistics or like your org or whatever, you get a bunch of people together to go down there and get the loot. Like that should be the challenging part on top of it. Don't get me wrong, the red key card should be good, but like I don't think we need rarity quite as much as Tarkov has, but I think in the same ballpark would be nice.
Yeah, just like justified reasoning to go into these
like
bunkers.
A red key card should be like a purple key card.
And, for sure.
People who don't know Tarkov aren't going to know what I'm talking about. But it just means like it's about 10 times easier to find one of these things. Or I mean, God, 100 times easier.
In 2 years, I haven't found a red key card, and it ain't for lack of looking. So yeah, you're not wrong.
I think most people haven't.
But I like the idea of like, you know, these rare key cards could be looted like anywhere in the
rare
verse,
thing, dude, could be like
and then used
alien artifacts and stuff.
Yeah. Like,
you know, like there's infinite possibilities. That's the thing that boggles my mind.
And they don't take advantage of it.
Channelite comes out, right? Like, this is why I'm nervous, dude. Is because things like Channelite comes out where they're promising, hey, we're going to bring life back to the caves, you know, or these missions or whatever. And then it's just like things, why does it feel like every time they release content, it snowballs away from being fun? Every time. Like, how do we not see the pattern here? Is my question.
Like,
so
they don't, like, it needs to be like you go to a certain bunker, there's certain loot there. Another bunker has certain loot there. But instead, every bunker has the same loot. Every location has the same loot. You can loot the same stuff in the bunker as you can going into a non-PvE like crate or whatever, a random outpost. Like, some of the best ways to get loot right now is to park at a base, like an outpost that has no combat ever, and you server hop looting the containers inside. I know, dude. Right? Like,
that's what people did for the Vandal masks and stuff. It's lame. It's lame. I get some people are collectors and you wanted the mask or whatever. That's fine. But like, man, that's the lamest way to do it. I just think there's so much better ways to do it. Like, for example, if they ever put mechs in Star Citizen, like I know they're supposed to be in Squadron 42 at some level. If they put them in Star Citizen, put them underground in those bases and make it where if you want them, the only way to get them is you have to extract them out of the bases. You know, and maybe they're pretty freaking good. You know, like that's the trade-off is they're like really hard to get. You can't respawn them anywhere.
Specific locations for specific things instead of everywhere has everything. 100%. And the cool thing about the UGFs too,
that being said, though,
like extract camping and all the like layers to it, right? Like at the necessity to use dropships to get out of there under pressure, like to have anti-air to cover your escape and stuff like this. Like there's layers to this, you know, and it's not just the typical you're going into a tiny little building where an A2 bomb can just pew, bomb. That's it. Your entire experience ruined, right? These are mega structures with depth. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that my only caveat to that statement is I would really like you're saying certain things, certain places. I think that should be on, for the sake of the conversation, things that are tier B for, I'm talking about components, weapons, however you want to think about it. Tier B and higher, right? Or maybe even B plus, right? Like you could get quote unquote B minus components. There's no reason why new players have to fucking fly to Hurl 3 to get an Atlas. Just give me one, dude. Like this, like focus on the fun. Like how hard is it to just focus on the fun? You know, like focus on the things that give the game more life.
I'm hoping it's like that, right? Like the UGFs, like if you were to use the current design, what we've got now, it's like the UGF, like a specific UGF is where you got to get the railguns, you know, like, or you go to get the FR66s, which are the best shield, you know, and you don't get them elsewhere. You don't just get them at the store and stuff, like, you know, reasons and compelling reasons to have a different job to do each day, you know.
And I think it would make sense is if you're a lawful, you know, goody two shoes and you don't want to go raid UE bases for the military grade A components, there should be Ninetales bases, maybe in high security systems or whatever, that give, again, never S tier, by the way. S tier should be reserved for no, like hard content in high level crafting, high level mining, high level trading, logistics, right? Risk. You went to a Vandal system, you killed a Vandal capital ship, and you got the Vandalanium, and you brought that back, and because of that, you can make S tier components. And that's just one piece of maybe 5 or 6 or 7 that you need to make this component, right? You need gold, you need, so maybe some not so rare materials, right? Like gold, titanium, diamonds, whatever. And then like you also need the crazy, you know, Vandalanium or whatever they'd call it, right? And you build out, you know, this logistics center for your base or whatever. That's what I'm more excited about for base building, right? Is the progression that it potentially brings. Now, was going to bring something up, but I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it on the podcast.
Oh, really? Like NDA stuff or what?
Here, wait. Actually, I'll DM you really quick.
Okay. It's funny how like everything is tied, like the progression and everything is tied to the economy, right? Like, and you and me have played for so long, we've seen glimpses of a great economy, right? Like, remember the Laranite rush, brother? Oh my gosh, how much fun we had with that. You know,
yeah, absolutely. 3.9 was incredible for that reason, right? So you have the Laranite rush, you have the gold in the barrel rush that was in 3.18, right? That was amazing, right? And so you get a taste of what it feels like whenever there's like an active economy. And I'm pretty sure the gold and the Boraz stuff was in part to the Montreal team, like the economy stuff. So I don't know, maybe they're heading in the right direction with that stuff. It just feels like at the moment, there's just such an imbalance with the economy. So I really hope they've got some cards up their sleeve with that. I'm not going to pretend like I know what's going on because they've been pretty close to their chest with that stuff for good reason. But the next time they put out an update on the economy, it's got to be the final time. And what I mean by final is, I mean, it's got to be the final foundation. They can obviously always update it, but we need the next economy update has got to be the final foundation. And maybe that's what they're going to talk about at CitizenCon this year. You know, I can't think of much else.
I'll tell you what, I'm so tired. I know we're going to get comments on I hope we don't get comments on the YouTube because I like to think my viewers are based. But like, I really don't want to read about how people like, it's too early for economy. I don't want to hear the word early ever again. Like ever, dude.
Guys, yeah, it's just time. Like we have to accept Star Citizen for the reality of what it is. It's not an alpha. It's not a beta. It's not... it's just Star Citizen. That's what it is. We are playing Star Citizen. That's it. Like it's not more complicated than that. We are playing Star Citizen, and it might as well be as close to a finished product today as it's ever going to be. And the only reason I say that is because if we don't start finishing the game now, it's never going to get finished. That's just a fact, right? It's like, do we want to wait another 5, 6, 7 years for progression, for economy, for, you know, whatever they've got up their sleeve, whether it's Quanta or something different? Like, no, what we need is playability. What we need is progression. And the thing is if CIG can't successfully add progression and playability in the next like couple of years, it probably is just never going to happen.
No,
that's just the truth.
100%. Yep. And go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that's not any fault. Again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm knocking CIG.
Yep.
I just think that people don't often think about the massive undertaking that CIG is doing in a realistic way.
It's like,
it's
you know what it's like?
The most impossible project ever.
It's like people have been here for so long that most of the player base are there to enjoy the development journey and to watch the narrative of this game getting created. And they've like relaxed on their expectations of it actually becoming a game. You know, it's like, don't get me wrong, I love open development. I love watching SCL, ISC and stuff like this, but I am ready for it to start feeling like a game now. Like when I started backing 6 years ago, I did not expect, you know, an economy to be that far out. Like, and we're still not there.
Neither did I.
Like, it's missing the soul of
still
what makes
far,
it.
Huh?
Yeah, and it feels like it's missing a soul of what makes it a game. Like, and the best way to look at this is to go on Twitch. Anybody that is on Twitch playing the game, like, is pretending doing what they're doing is worthwhile. You know, like there's no meaningful progress to an account. People are having to simulate 0 to hero to make it feel like it's a game and that there is an economy and that they do need to do this stuff. But really, it's just this empty theme park where you buy your NFT and you take it for a spin. You know, and I get the argument. There's mechanics, there's systems to be in place. We need server meshing and all this stuff, but I don't think that's enough to skip having, you know, a soul of a game, a reason to play, compelling reasons to log in. You know? It's
really strange, man. Like you have a game. Again, I'm referencing Helldivers and only referencing them a lot because they're doing things right. Yep. And when games do things right, I reference them. It's not the only game I've referenced in the past. I've talked about, you know, Sea of Thieves. I've talked about BattleBit, right? BattleBit was crushing it at one point, right? And something that Helldivers did really well that I was a little bit shocked by was they released the mechs in the most interesting way possible. First of all, there's literally devs jumping into random games and spawning mechs for people, right?
Yeah.
And do people care that the devs are doing that in Helldivers? No, because people didn't pay thousands of dollars to get access to this stuff. Right? They're just like, holy moly, there's a mech. Like, this is so cool. And then they release an event where they're like, hey guys, just so you know, the automatons, which are the bad guys in this game, are on their way to attack the main distribution center of the new mech technology. If you guys lose this planet, you won't get the mechs. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, dude.
Like these are the kind of thing. That's a dynamic event.
Yeah,
that's a dynamic event.
Because if it goes sideways, you're screwed, right? But
if
you fail Xeno Threat, nothing happens. You know, like
you fell Xeno Threat, nothing happens. You fell Ninetales Lockdown, nothing happens.
That's
not dynamic, guys.
We don't lose.
That is a
we never lose Orison.
A linear event.
It's like
you never lose Orison. Like
that's
not a dynamic event. That's not what a dynamic event is. Like they're lying when they're saying it's a dynamic event, or at the best, they are mislabeling it. Dynamic events would be that something dynamic happens at the end and something dynamic makes it start, right? Which is 0 of the events. 0.
And Star Citizens, the community team goes, things are getting a bit stagnant. Let's pull this lever. It's Jumptown this week. You know, like, and when it could be this every week, there could be compelling reasons in the economy progression and stuff to be having these type of experiences organically by ourselves.
I don't know why they don't understand that, or who's making the calls not to do that stuff. They could literally be having like a Brios rotate like once a week of like what it's. They could even say one of two things: either A, this is the lab you're selling to this week, or this is the most profitable one this week, or they could say this is what Brios wants to buy this week. Hey, turns out Brios wants to buy a lot of RMC this week. I mean, it's in demand. They've been doing a lot of repairs. So guess what? Brios is the most profitable place to sell your scrap now. It doesn't have to be Brios. It could be SMO 18 on Microtech, right? Like they really need some fuel. And because of that, whatever. And so surrounding it around that, and a lot of people, maybe it's like, the reason they don't want to do that is because it's not dynamic and it's not automatic, and they have to like adjust the numbers once a week or whatever. And I understand that, but like it would be a great start. It would be a
Yeah.
start. It would be something. And it's like, until CIG can prove to me that they have something better in their back pocket, which they haven't. Well, I don't know about you guys. I've never seen Quana.
It's like those price alerts. Remember when they started doing those commodity price alerts? It's like
the only thing that ever came out of that was the audio video equipment stuff. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and no one cared about it. It's like, and so like you just add some, you just add some commodity spikes to those price alerts.
They did care about it, but that was right before they did that big wipe where they were like, "There's trillions of dollars in the economy or whatever."
Nothing to spend it on. Yep.
Nothing to spend it on.
Okay, so I've got. Okay,
I would just say, like, this is the final point I'll make for the economy is that if the top of the scale of the quote unquote progression you can get in this economy is just being able to have hundreds of millions of AUC and send it to random people, like, that's just not where I want the top of the progression to be. Right. So we got to evolve. We got to get better. And I think CIG wants to, but I think it's time that they start focusing on progress and economy. But yeah, go ahead. What's the question?
Me too. 100% me too. So the last question was, and we'll wrap it up after this. What do you envision yourself doing for content when this game is more fleshed out? What's the day-to-day look like on a Berks stream? I know who you like to try to capture. Like, I know your favorite streamers, but what do you think is going to be the day-to-day experience on Berks' channel?
I don't know, man. Like, to be honest with you, this is what makes me nervous. And I don't mean to like spread doubt or anything, because I do love Star Citizen, and it's not just because I haven't been streaming it. This is the thing that's been making me nervous for a while. Is like, I can't see where, like, finish Star Citizen. It's nowhere in my mind. And the reason why is because it's just a completely different game, right? Like, are we collecting some sort of currency that's gonna like get us the better base or whatever? Are we going to be mainly doing crafting? Are we going to be mainly doing whatever? But I'll tell you what, dude, the content that I want to do is player interaction more than anything in any video game, not just Star Citizen. So any interaction where I could be, whether that's bounty hunting or pirating or whatever, I just want to be interacting with other players. And if I can be doing that at a high level, that's even better. So collaboration on like maybe raids in the future would be really cool. And raids don't have to be just PvE, PvP raids too, right? And doing like content like that, I think makes a lot of sense for me. But I just don't know what they want to do with the game, man. It's not clear to me. And I don't believe it's really clear to anyone what the end of Star Citizen looks like in terms of this stuff. They've talked about it, but it's just, I just don't know what finished Star Citizen looks like to me. I think that if you would ask this question to me 6 months ago, I'd probably say, I want to be a bounty hunter, pirate, do stuff like that. But I just don't know where I fit in yet into the finished game. I just know that wherever I fit in, I want to feel like what I'm doing every day matters. And I want to feel like the people I'm interacting with have meaning and that there's stuff to do. Like, I want to log on to Star Citizen every day with the sense of purpose that I get playing other video games I've been really liking lately. You know, like where I wake up and I go, man, I cannot wait to play Star Citizen today because I've got to get XYZ components. Oh, the boys are raiding this the Virgil system over here. I better sign on so I can help. Like, stuff like that makes me excited. And I think that hopefully at CitizenCon this year, we'll get some more clarity what post 1.0 looks like, because I don't think we have much clarity on it at the moment. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah. No, I get it. Like, yeah, for me, it's probably like some criminal element, like a lot of the old gameplay being in the deep end of it. But yeah, I totally get it. And that lines up exactly with what you and me have talked in the past, is how you really enjoy that interaction of gameplay. The social aspect of people meeting each other in the verse with circumstances. And I know you enjoy bounty hunting, so yeah, and just challenging gameplay. I'm a really big fan of logistical challenging gameplay. Like, oh my God,
let's talk about that. I've actually just had an epiphany on this subject.
Okay.
Do you know where I felt like the first time I was playing Star Citizen 1.0?
No,
The
go ahead.
platinum ticket event, dude, where I'm prone in the front of the A2,
Oh, right.
tractoring the body while we're literally sending in an armada to fight 3 different orgs at the same time, while I'm on the ground stealthily sneaking in to like get the, you know, the bot. Like, it was insane. Bombs are going off every 5 seconds. A2 bomb, A2 bomb, A2 bomb, A2 bomb. It's like a Helldivers map, no joke. It's like everywhere. There's explosions. There's probably 80 people in front of us, all fighting over this one resource. And I'm not saying every part of Star Citizen needs to be as hectic of that, but that was the first time I genuinely felt like an org event actually mattered. And I have my issues with the platinum ticket event. I think it was done very poorly in the sense of, if you release a new WoW raid and only 0.01% of the people get to play it, it's not a success, right? Like, there definitely wasn't enough accessibility in that. I have some ideas on how they could make that event better for sure. But I think that for me, content like that, where I feel challenged, I feel like I'm a part of a group, I feel like it's meaningful. I mean, dude, have we ever, like, seriously, can you think of a moment that's been more fun than that?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't. Recently, that was amazing.
Do you know what the worst
like, remember
part
when
is?
you were like,
that was the best video we never recorded. That was the
I
best
didn't record
video
it.
we ever, like,
I didn't record it.
People, that's the worst thing about Shadow Moses, right? Is we get up to the craziest stuff, like, that never gets captured. Like, some of the battles we've been in, some of the, like, sweaty fights, the stuff we've got into has been so crazy, and that event was a perfect example. That was that was a movie. Like, if you put that 3 minutes out, like, it would have been a absolute.
It was the most
movie.
insane. Yeah, it was the most insane hour of Star Citizen I've ever played.
Yeah.
Like, I am so regretful I didn't record it.
For people
regretful.
For people who don't know, like, what was going on was the platinum ticket had fallen to the ground. Space Cutlet had it, and like the top PvP orgs were all duking out. It was like 70 players or whatever above this. We're trying to control the airspace. We've got all our best pilots, like 15 of us, trying to take down other pilots and stuff. And we're running out of ideas on how to get this golden ticket off the ground. So eventually we get an A2 bomber. We open up the front door, and Berks, because Berks has so much experience with the PU, he had the grav tool and he's proning on the ground, picking up Cutlet's body. He pulls it up, scoops it onto the ship. We start flying off. There's chaff. Like, you can't see anything. The screen's black with all the chaff. We're telling our
guys, like 18 Shadow Moses guys fighting people around us.
And then you're flying off in the A2. We're trying to keep people off you. We're instructing guys, like, if they get too close to the A2, ram them. Like, keeping people off you.
QT's bugged. Yeah, like, he's trying to spool up. It's not working because of the QT, because he's in a party. So we're literally like yelling, kick Virpil out of the group, kick Virpil out of the group, kick him out of the group, so we can QT because it's broken. And so we finally kick him out of the group. He's about to explode. We QT with a millisecond left. And the worst, you know what? And I'm not even mad about the fact, if you guys don't know the end of this story, essentially the ticket was bugged out. And so it said that we had the ticket. It was in the backpack that we were supposed to be able to claim it in, but it actually wasn't there. If you played the platinum ticket event, this very common problem, it happened to us. And so we didn't actually end up scoring it, but it still felt like such a victory. Why? Because of the moment, right? Yeah. And so I think that CIG creating more moments like that, where people can wrestle, you know, over resources and stuff, I think that makes so much sense. Yeah. And I think there's better ways to do it for sure. I think that it's a good start, you know, and that's what I want to see more of in the future, is things that feel like they matter. And that really felt like it mattered in the moment.
You know why? Because that was a glimpse at the economy. Like, brand new, overpowered, rare ship, you know, like, being up for grabs, not bought by with USD. And so everyone fought over it, like, tooth and nail. So it's like, it's like with the Laranite rush that we mentioned. It's like you get these tiny glimpses of all this potential combined arms, all the loops interacting, when there's one single economic reasoning to do so. And that could be the experience every day. It could be. Like, it just lacks one word: reason, you know, and that's it.
Yeah.
So we've played the best of it. We've played the worst of it. Here's to hoping it gets better, right? And you know, people like you and me are compelled to want to cover content on it, actual gameplay content, not just talking about the development all the time, right? Like actually getting in there and playing the nitty gritty of it. But man, that was awesome. Yeah, that was really fun. Yeah, I had really enjoyed that, dude.
And yeah, if you guys are still listening, I was avoiding Virgil for like weeks just because I've been busy with IRL stuff, but he's been hounding me trying to get me on this thing.
Yeah, no, it's so much fun, dude. So much fun. I think people will enjoy this. So we'll wrap it on that. I'll let you get back to your stuff. Awesome, man. Very awesome. Thanks for coming. And
yeah, GG's everyone.
Watching, appreciate it. Yeah, I'll talk to you guys in the comments. GG's. Peace.
Yo, peace.
There you have it. Appreciate Berks for coming on. It was really fun to talk to him. We went over the time limit because me and have fun all the time. Every night in Discord is like this. Every night in Discord with Berks is always like this. So yeah, just really cool that I got to capture that for the first time. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And you know, you can probably see how close me and Berks are. So very cool dude. Appreciate him coming out of his way when he isn't making content now. He's been MIA to come do that with me. So really cool of him. Apologies, I'm so disappointed in the audio. Like I have hearing issues, so it's hard for me to verify if the audio is right until it's recorded already. And then here I am, you know, messing it up. So I will look to fix that in the future. And I think I'll move these like podcast style to Twitch as well, just so I can verify the audio. Maybe people can get questions in, do some more Twitch stuff, I think. But yeah, really enjoyed it. I want this like podcast to kind of be interviewing players that I don't think get in the light a lot. You know, I really want to capture like conversations with legitimate org leaders, like players that are specialized in loops, you know, whether it's mining, cargo hauling, anything. I really want to get interesting players on the show that I don't think would be on other people's podcasts as often. Because I know a lot of people, content creators, like to just, you know, talk about the development stuff, and I'm the opposite. I want to talk to the players, the real nitty gritty, the guys who really have their finger close to the pulse, and interview people that, you know, aren't in that content creator space. So there you go. Hopefully this was bearable. Apologies again. 1, 2, 3 boys if you got it this far, and I appreciate you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Yeah, peace.